paper magic will survive like the heat death of the universe, and will...
Oh, it's a smuggler's copter. Would you like to crew this? And then it crashes because they don't understand arithmetic.
All your cards belong to me.
2 minutes into macing him in the eyeballs, I switched to pepper spray. He's like, that's downright refreshing. And went back to the mace.
Magic is dying. I'm done. Selling everything.
I might be a hoarder. And yes,
I don't have the crayons or glue to explain this to you right now.
What, are you gonna die twice?
Oil will be worthless before magic cards will.
well, okay, Dr. Man.
That's Mr. Dr. Professor Jason.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Brainstorm Brewery. I'm Corbin Hostler, joined as always by my co-hosts Jason and DJ, and we have a very special episode on tap for you today. We did something
as always.
As always.
It's not
that's
as
right.
always. As always implies like forever from the beginning, middle, and end. And not all of us have always been on this podcast, and one of you two will die before me. Therefore, it's not as always. It's not.
I like
you can't
neither
promise
one of us.
them for. You can't promise them forever of the Three Musketeers that is Brainstorm. You can't promise that. It's like a kid. Has your kid asked you if you're gonna die yet? Like you can't. Tell him,
I like the optimism and the
you can't
commitment.
tell him no.
DJ
Like, he's
plans
gonna-
on podcasting till someone dies. I like that.
Everybody knows that's what rewinding sounds like.
That is what rewinding sounds like. We recorded some after hours there. But for those of you who are with us here for the podcast, we do have some special content planned. So we had the opportunity over the last week. Jason and DJ were able to sit down with Jay White, who is a player in Michigan, local to Jason, who had some really smart stuff to say, actually, about sort of the coming... The next gold rush, if you will, the return of organized play and what that might mean financially. And, you know, it ties into a lot of what we talk about, being greedy when others are fearful and fearful when others are greedy, that sort of thing. So we'll get to that in a little bit, but we want to jump right on into it this week and just dive right into Breaking Bulk.
Breaking bulk time. Breaking bulk time. Break.
Oh, yeah, breaking bulk. There's so much good stuff.
It's a pick. Breaking bulk. The end.
Ooh, that's...
I have a Scars of Mirrodin rare artifact.
Similar
And
example.
Is
It's
it
a
bulk?
reasonably large. It's not too large of a pool. No, it's a $3 card. I'll give you the exact number. It's a $3 card. That narrows it down.
Similar
Breaking
examples.
bulk,
more
hey,
than that now,
$3
isn't it?
rares
Used to be
shouldn't
bulk.
be in your bulk, guys. We did
That
it.
is true, but like this is the kind of card that you will find in a bulk rare bin because it was bulk for the longest time.
What are the... You said it was an artifact?
It's a 3-mana colorless, or not 3 mana, $3. It's a $3 colorless rare from Scars of Mirrodin with no reprints. I'm 99%.
Is it colorless or is it an artifact?
It's colorless. It's a colorless artifact. None of the artifacts from Scars of Mirrodin had color. Only the new Phyrexian ones did.
It's...
Double checking on the reprints. Oh, it does have reprints. I forgot. It does have 2 reprints. I'm glad I checked.
Okay, what are they?
C14 and C17.
And it's not Ratchet Bomb? Because
Nope.
that's like
It was,
bulk, right? That's actual bulk. That's...
Hold up. The token thing when something dies. Mimic
Nope.
Vat. No?
Nope. It is not Mimic Vat. That was a good guess. Mimic Vat, I think, has a couple more
It
prints
has a
than
couple
that, but-
reprints, I believe, yeah.
But this is C14. It was in the white deck, and then C17. It was in the green-white deck.
That's not gonna help me.
So that should help you. That's a glaring direction for the
I mean,
card
it's an
to go.
equipment, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, Scars of Mirrodin equipment, huh?
But like all the stuff that had
Well-
like... How could it be expensive? Like Livewire Lash is bulk.
Argenum armor? Is it Argenum
It is
armor?
Argenum armor.
Oh, wow.
This
standard
as of
deck,
last
baby.
year was $1. Last year it was $1. It was in that like not bulk rare but still worth picking thing, and
Mhm.
it hard spiked a few months ago to 3, which I mean it's a 300% spike, so it is a hard spike. And it's just there's been a lot of those cards printed recently that let you move equipment around or that let you cheat the
Sure.
costs. Boros commanders get printed every 3 months that say something with the word equipment on them, then we all forget about them because they're
Do
bad.
you think Hammer Time was playing this in Modern or something stupid like that?
Probably. I mean, I don't know if that would necessarily cause it. There may have just been some... It may have been as simple as it being on an episode of Game Nights or something, right? I will say I have played Hammer Time. I have not seen it in Hammer Time, but that doesn't mean it hasn't
But there,
moved to it
back in the
recently.
day, Argenum Armor was in the Quest for the Holy Relic deck.
Yep.
Yes, the
Yep.
Memnite Glint Hawk deck. That was one of the first standard decks I ever witnessed like being played at an event.
I love that one.
turn 1 Quest for the Holy Relic, turn 2 like Memnite, Core Skyfisher, Memnite, Ornithopter, play a thing, play an Argentum Armor.
Argentum
Yeah, that was
Armor,
a
your
very fun
Sky
deck.
Knight, and then just go to town. And you would still lose to like the even less fair the Eldrazi conscription decks. Those were fun.
My favorite part about that deck was that it was too fat. Like, Stoneforge Mystic was too slow.
Yeah.
Stoneforge Mystic was like, no, we're not playing this on turn 2.
Yeah. Yeah.
Stoneforge Mystic was $1 until
Yes.
they printed. That was like
Out of school.
when
yeah.
they printed. They announced there was a sword.
It was Sword of
I
Feast
went
and
and
Famine, that
bought
was the
a
breaker.
ton of
Yeah.
Stoneforge Mystics at like 50 cents, and then got out of them at like $3, and I thought I was a genius. I was at
Yep.
GP like Toronto, and some dealer's like, "I'm paying $3 on those," and I was like, "Here you go, Frenchie," and I was like, "Yeah, that's 6 times what I paid," and then
Well, I
it was
mean,
my
you weren't
first
not
MTG
a
Finance
genius.
success and
Yeah.
defeat.
Yeah,
at the
you
same
weren't
time.
not a genius though. I mean, you did it right.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I've talked a lot on this podcast about like the fat pack box that's brought to a GP, and this is always in it. This is
Yeah.
like I bought the cat deck to play with my friends. I didn't like it. Pulled out the Hammer of Nizan and the other expensive stuff, and then they hand me the rest of this box. Like, this is worthless. And then I pull an Argentum Armor box. I pull an Argentum Armor out. I put it in a quarter pile. Nowadays, I put it in the 150 pile.
Yeah, right.
Argentum
This
Armor
hasn't
is a sweet
been
one.
more than a quarter on a buy list since the last time you were at a GP. Don't pretend that like you're like,
Yeah.
oh, I have to pretend I pay more now. You don't. You haven't. This was
All right.
bulk when DJ was able to buy them, and now everything's on fire and the world sucks. And Corbin got vaccinated before me, even though my wife works at the hospital in the vaccine clinic. All right.
Yep, unlucky for you. Great for me though. All right, I'm gonna go with a true DJ pick here.
Oh, is it a $5 rare? Is
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's more like an old school DJ pick, right? This is a 5-cent buy list card, and it is from everyone's favorite set, Dragon's Maze. It's a multicolored Dragon Maze common.
is it the?
It is something you might think of. I mean, this card is always sort of floated in between being a pick and not.
I think Teleportal was like Return to Ravnica, right?
Trace
like
of
the-
a-
Teleportal is Return to Ravnica, yes.
This Dragon's Maze. So like, there's nothing in that set.
Is
there
it
were
a
like
Guild Gate?
5 cards,
What, DJ?
Is it a Guild Gate?
It is not. No.
and it's not a.
It's a creature. It's a creature. It's a 2-mana creature.
And it's not a Guild Mage, because those
It
are
is not.
uncommon.
No, it is a common. It is a Orzhov
Is it the
card.
Deputy of Acquittals?
It is not, which is not a pick, actually. I just checked on those a few days ago.
Orzhov 2-mana common. I mean, that's all the
Oh, it's Orzhov?
information.
Yep.
It's the lifelinker.
It does have lifelink, you're right.
Yeah.
It also has extort, which is why I imagine it's a pick. The card is
Sure.
Tithe Drinker?
Yeah.
Yep, okay. Yep.
Yeah, this is a card that used to be more of a pick, and then it's kind of not a pick, but it's sort of right on that line of, hey, sometimes it is a pick. But yeah, it's basically an extort card. And if you don't remember extort, let me read it here. Whenever you cast a spell...
How are you getting away with nobody playing Blind Obedience against you?
Yeah, right. Yeah. Whenever you cast a spell, you may pay white or black. If you do, each opponent gains 1 life. I'm sorry, loses a life. And you gain that much life. So yeah, Blind Obedience is the most popular one, I think.
Crypt Gas, too. They're both
Yeah.
super duper playable in 88.
They word that differently nowadays.
They
because
do.
of
They learn their
extort.
lesson.
They wanted to experiment. Return to Ravnica was like the first era where they were just playing around with multiplayer scaling in a design sense, not in terms of like just it happened to have it.
Right.
But like that was where the Primordials came out. That was where Cryptgast came out. Like that was where Extort was
Cyclonic
just like,
Rift.
yeah.
Yeah.
And they were just like, let's
Yeah.
see if it's scaling, multiplayer scaling is appropriate. And then like they realized that Exsanguinate is a bit too good, and that nowadays it's like each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life.
Yep.
Well,
All right, Jason.
I got something that harkens back to Kamigawa block. It's not a $5 rare, but it is a 25-cent buy listing uncommon blue creature. That's so much info.
An
Champion
uncommon blue creature from
uncommon.
Champion.
25 cents.
Graceful Adept.
Nope.
I'm
gonna be honest.
The flip one that gains
Nope.
flying.
Nope.
Student of whatever.
That's rare, isn't it?
No.
Oh, you're talking. You're not talking Joshi Apprentice. You're talking the. No, it's not that.
Student of Elements, yeah.
That wasn't Champions, was it?
I don't know, but you're using this to delay my timer.
I don't think I'm going to know this one offhand. I usually pull all. I basically check every uncommon.
It is not. The Zuberas were common.
Not all of them. The 4-mana one that dies, I think, is uncommon.
Okay.
Because there's a 4-mana one that also.
I got nothing for you.
It is a Moonfolk.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I'm not going to get the name of it.
Soratami Savant, which is a mana leak on a stick. Return a land you control to its owner's hand. Pay 3. Counterspell unless they pay 3. Returning lands to hand to get effects is not just for Molokus anymore, baby. It's real cool to load your hand back up. I'm playing a couple of Moonfolk in my Omnath decks. I'm playing the one where you can bounce a creature if you bounce a land. So
what is
like
this Soratami what?
Savant. This is the 2/2 flying for 4 that you can counter spells. It was kind of a nuisance in limited. Cloudskate was real good in limited. Soratami Cloudskate was just, it was like a looter that you didn't tap. It was just brutal.
It's an interesting card for sure.
Yeah, like I think all the
repeatable.
Moonfolk are like pretty cool, and now that like it's cool to play multiple lands against landfall triggers, Soratami Savant is just a counterspell on a stick when every land returned to your hand is just another Royal Elemental trigger.
And it picks up DFC lands from Zendikar, whatever,
Yep.
Rising.
Yeah.
I don't even care about picking up DFC lands. Like I care about ETB lands.
Yeah,
You
that
got
too.
the
I
Right?
feel like
down with
changing
ETB.
your. I feel like changing the mana, like the mana one of your lands can produce on turn 8 or whatever is like. It's like nobody's doing that. Like you're picking up a Bazooka Bog, right? Or like
No. You're picking up Agadeem's Awakening that you played as a land on turn
Your
1.
Balaged Recovery is now a Balaged Recovery. Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
sure, yeah.
Your Tangled Florahedron is now a worthless ZO2.
Yeah.
You got all
That
kinds
is
of
one that was a very weird one, in my opinion, for them to have designed, because both sides are.
No, that one's insanely well designed for limited.
It's
Are you
really
kidding me?
good.
It's great for limited. It is great for
Yeah.
limited.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll give you that.
So Soratami Savant, buy listing for like a quarter, and it's a cool card, and I got you's idiots because I played
You
back
certainly
then,
did.
and you didn't.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't know that I've ever even seen this card. Like, I'm sure I've passed over this card, may have even looked it up before, but I'm not familiar with it.
That was right when I got into competitive limited, and like
Yeah.
those were good times because I had no responsibilities because I was like 22.
Yeah. All right. Well, everybody, as a reminder, any of the cards we talked about here, you can find these and any other cards worth money at mtgstocks.com. The way that I do picking is if I open a box over the weekend, I was looking through a box of Return to Ravnica. So what I did is I went to mtgstocks.com and looked up the Return to Ravnica set, and I can sort by the price for all the commons and uncommons. And that's very helpful when you're picking, or in the case of a couple sets, to know that there just were no cards worth picking at common, or there were no cards in this color worth picking. So that's one of the ways, in addition to using the prices and the price movement and that sort of stuff we talk about every week.
Yeah.
It's very useful for just getting everything with a number in front of you in a really easy to scan and control F-able way.
I used to have that like memorized like 2 to 3 years ago. I used to have that entire thing memorized where it's like, oh yeah, Urza's Saga White Common done. Like there's nothing. And then I just had like, oh, it's like Dragon's Maze Black Uncommons. Cause like I would get a lot of collections that were just color sorted purely.
Right.
It's like, oh yeah, like Dragon's Maze Black Uncommons. Oh yeah, there's this and this. Like I just had that memorized for 2 years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And these days it changes quite a bit. So it's good to always, sort of refresh yourself, right? I certainly found cards while I was, working on boxes over the weekend just by using that page, that I was able to see stuff that I hadn't realized that it had either gone down as much as it had or gone up to an extent. So,
You can be as
definitely
bad
go
at
check
this
out
as Corbin and still make
mtgstocks.com
money by going to mtgstocks.com. Don't pay attention for
And if that
literally
isn't a
3
pitch, what
years.
is?
Make money. I've been
And
on your
with that,
podcast that
everybody-
you don't know what you're doing, that you're completely divorced from everything you're talking about and giving advice on. MTGstocks.com.
Hey, you don't need to have all the cards. You don't need to have all the cards memorized. No one has all the cards memorized, as evidenced
No.
by this game. All you need to do is know what you don't know and know where to go to learn it. And that's what I use
MTG
MTG
Stocks
for.
is where we go.
All right, now we want to transition into an interview with Jay White, with Jason and DJ, about all of the price spikes yet to come that you may not be thinking about quite yet. So we'll go ahead and hop into that now. Enjoy, everybody.
Man, past DJ was so much more handsome. It was a different time. It was a different lifetime.
All right, listeners, we thought we would do something a little bit different this week, and we are recording an interview with someone who tweeted something that we think is very good advice, both for like our unfranchised MTG finance folks and, for some of the people that don't really take finances seriously, but want obvious stuff pointed out to them so they don't have to pay attention to finance. We are joined by the Detroit area's Jay White, a.k.a. Drip Guy. Jay, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Very glad to be on.
So Jay's a mainstay in the Michigan MTG scene. I'm sure if you're from the area, you've seen him probably at Grand Prix and stuff. But for those who don't know much about you, Jay, do you want to introduce yourself a little bit?
Yeah, my name is Jay. For those who know me personally, my name is Jaron. You can catch me back when before we had paper tournaments. You usually catch me at your local store, or you can catch me on Twitter, posting drip on a daily basis.
Yeah, that's JWMTG. We'll have that in the show notes, so you can follow Jay. And if you did follow Jay, you saw something he tweeted the last week that I thought was really helpful. He said on March 12th, "This is possibly one of the few times I'm going to say this. Buy cards when they are cheap. Once stores and tournaments start going again, everything is fair game." Now, that may sound like kind of common sense, but the thing that I thought was good was the timing of it, because everyone's like, yeah, obviously buy cards when they're cheap. But I don't think people have thought about like how all the stuff that people are buying with their stimulus checks is kind of super weird. They're like buying reserve list type stuff, but nobody seems really prepared for what will happen when paper events open back up again. So is there anything you wanted to tell us about your tweet, what you meant behind it, before we sort of launch into a segment about it?
Yeah, so like that was one of the things I actually thought about. People around here literally buying like reserve list cards, and I'm like, wait a minute, I have a feeling we're gonna be playing paper Magic in under a year. Just an odd feeling. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and post this tweet because I think it is very good information that people need to know.
So what kind of cards do you think people are kind of ignoring right now just because, yeah, we could be playing paper in under a year, but it's been over a year since we really played any paper events seriously. And it seems like Modern is not a format people are really playing on Arena right now. So paper Modern cards have really tanked. Is there anything you're looking at in that format, for example?
I'm looking at particularly fetches. Also Valky. Anything that is a staple right now, you probably should be buying right now while it's cheap. Anything you plan on, anything that you think you have interest in, go ahead and buy it.
So,
Okay.
What would you say the timeline on that is? Just because, like, stimulus checks could be coming this weekend, they could be coming 3 months from now. Do you think people who have to wait 2 months for that excess income, or who are planning on using that excess income to buy cards, do you think they have enough time?
I think it is very reasonable time. Within like the next 6 months to a year to at least start, so that way you're not caught in the fluster of people trying to buy cards before tournaments.
Yeah, absolutely. Like being the person buying on the day of is always. I mean, for me, it's the best feeling because I'm the vendor behind the booth. But like, for the player, it is not a great feeling having to shell out $7 for whatever the uncommon of the week is, for sure.
Now, if you're not somebody who pays a ton of attention to what's going on in some of these formats, we keep singling Modern out, and I kind of think that Modern is the format that was probably impacted most by COVID and will probably recover the best post-COVID. Because like I don't really care what's happening in Vintage because I didn't have a chance to play a ton of Vintage before, but I don't I don't necessarily want to be investing in Pauper staples. So we're picking on Modern a little bit, but I kind of think we can all agree that that's the format where you could have the most feel bads associated with not buying something at the right time. So if you're not someone who cares about Modern per se, but you would like to not overpay on those cards, what are some online resources that people can use to kind of identify the cards they should be picking up?
Ooh, so um, I usually end up watching Twitter a lot, and what happens is there are certain people I do follow, such as Robert Taylor Fire Shoes, um, MTG Data, things of that nature, and they basically post deck lists on a almost almost a daily basis, and it's telling me in the back of my mind, hey, these are cards that are seeing play often, so therefore I should make a mental note of it, and then when it comes time for me and I have the money to buy those cards, I can refer back to that list.
Oh yeah, like following deck list people is the best. I need to do more of that because I am not somebody who's really integrated into that sort of Magic Online community or like the arena community. Anybody who's like grinding actively, I'm just tend to not be in that like friend group because I don't play that much personally. But like getting to see the retweets and stuff, like I'm always super interested anytime something gets put on my feed, be it either a like or a retweet, where it's just this really interesting, unique deck that nobody else is playing, and like I don't think the pros tweet this stuff very often either, because either A, they put it in an article that ends up coming out 5 days later behind a paywall, or B, they're like testing it for themselves to just have the edge. But just like the moto grinders and the people who tweet out like the really interesting new decks before they come out, like that's always the best play, I think, because then you're getting the data like as they're testing it.
Yes.
Yeah, if you hadn't mentioned Robert Taylor, I was actually going to. I think he's a great follow. And someone like me who's not really hooked into the competitive scene anymore, because I just, don't really play that much Magic these days. That isn't EDH. Like somebody who's just on the lookout for interesting stuff and, just checking out some retweets. I think that's pretty valuable. And I think the amount of money you can make not paying attention at all, versus following one account. I think, you know what I'm saying? Like the leap from 0 to 1 is so much greater than the leap from 1 to like 30. So
well,
I
it's
think
literally infinite. It's literally infinite.
Yeah. It's just, it's such a small time investment to have someone on the lookout for interesting stuff. Now, when you say pick up for yourself, say people were going to buy the cards for themselves, do you recommend buying more than 4 copies of something they feel strongly about?
So because of the way cards are printed nowadays, I usually buy 4 copies for myself, because I don't usually see myself selling that card, because the specs I make on the cards are usually pretty solid information. But if I do end up selling the card, I know the card's going to spike within a certain amount of time, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it does. So you're not advocating like buying any more than you think people will need, just on the basis of like, I'm pretty sure if I need 4 bobs, someone else will need 4 bobs, so I should buy 8. You're not necessarily advocating, because that's sort of how I approach EDH. Anytime I'm buying something, I'm like, I'm pretty sure I'm not the only person who's identified like Aetherflux Reservoir as a good card. So if I think I want 4 for myself, or potentially 4 or 5 decks, like there's no reason not to buy a ton more. But you're not. So one potential thing, I think, when you say the way cards are printed nowadays, you're referring to something like Modern Horizons 2 coming up?
Yes, and Modern Horizons 2, future sets, things of that nature, because you never know when you can see a reprint.
Well, a reprint or just an obsolescence, right? I mean, like, if we had this conversation 2 years ago, pre-Modern Horizons 1, and we were talking about the modern metagame and all these crazy Arclight Phoenix decks, and then Hogak just stands in front of everyone, and they all just move out of the way. Like, that's just the way cards are printed nowadays. Reprints is one thing, but it also just means like cards becoming unnecessary and just like obsolete.
Yes.
But people will always need fetch lands. They'll need them for every format. They'll need them for every deck.
They're not banning fetch lands.
Shock lands. buy Shocklands.
Somebody's listening to this, and they're like, but what if they ban fetch? No, that's not gonna happen. Okay? Pull over, take a deep breath, let it out. You're in the last stage. Accept it.
However, speaking of lands, there also something behind that tweet I also meant too. What I meant was Pioneer and Standard. More specifically, Pioneer.
Sure.
Pioneer didn't get the chance to really take off because COVID happened, and Pioneer was mainly meant for paper. So, like, with that being said, like, my thought was like, buy Fastlands, buy Shocklands, because 9 times out of 10 they're not going to reprint Shocklands anytime soon.
Sure.
And over time you're gonna see them creep up and creep up and creep up. So why not get Shocklands while they're cheap? Why not spend $200? Why not spend $200 on a set of Shocklands as opposed to $300 to $400?
Yeah, Pioneer is just a super interesting one to me because it seems like that was something done by Wizards before they realized how much of a bigger impact they can make by making historic. Like, it's so hard because like historic is so impossible to have as a format on paper, but it feels like historic is what they wanted Pioneer to be in the first place.
Yeah,
and that like it's something they can manually select and just tinker with. Like, I have no idea what's legal in historic. I can't keep you have to have your finger on the pulse of that format to even know what's legal or meta or relevant. But like,
yeah.
It and Pioneer was just like the simplistic version of that in paper that they could manage. But like, because you can't have Pioneer be the way historic is in paper. Like, you can't have like, oh yeah, Phyrexian Obliterator is legal. Why? Just, I don't know, we felt like it. Like, and like the difference between suspended and banned and all, like, just it's just,
Yeah.
I don't know. And historic's not like a format you can actually like make money on either, which is the weird thing.
Yeah, that is
Yeah.
very weird.
So yeah, that's an excellent point about Pioneer, which was just, it's sort of like the Wild West, and we sort of bought ourselves a year of, where there's not a lot of innovation in the format that people are widely finding out about. So like a lot of that stuff, if it didn't get played in basically EDH, which is the paper format people are playing because of like Spell Table and stuff like that, anything that didn't really impact that format, it just sort of, the price tailed off as, there wasn't much interest in it. So, is there anything specific other than lands you're targeting, with respect to Pioneer specifically?
Walkers.
Planeswalkers?
Yep. Teferi Hero Dominaria was actually my first pickup. Dig through time, because I realistically actually don't see them banning that card no time soon. Same thing with Treasure Cruise.
What is it about Pioneer that makes a card like Treasure Cruise less abused than it would be in like Modern?
There are less ways to put cards in a graveyard per se, and like there are also no fetches.
Okay.
So like, say for example, like if there were fetches in Pioneer, I'm almost like 100% certain they probably would have banned Dig Through Time and or Treasure Cruise by now.
What about Fable Passage? Is that a thing?
Yes, it is. And Fable Passage actually sees play in just about every deck, really. And it is, but there's a caveat to it. There's a very interesting caveat to it. It only grabs basic lands, which is good.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that and it's been like reprinted to death. Like that card's been in existence for less than like 24 months, and it's still been reprinted to death.
You're reiterating something we say a lot on this podcast, which is, invest in real estate. So I kind of think, just finding a few resources to look at what people are playing in Pioneer and Modern, and just buy all the lands you think that you'd need for that format. What about Standard? Standard's something that's a little hard to anticipate, right? Because like we would need to know basically down to the month when people are going to start. So say
Yeah.
everybody gets vaccinated by June, and then
Mhm.
maybe in July or August, paper events start to come back. So it seems like the stuff that's going to be important in that standard might not have even been printed yet. Is there anything that you think that's currently in print that will still be legal this summer that you think can impact a potential future standard? And if you don't understand standard that well, what's something you could use to try to figure out what kind of cards you might want to look at?
So, to answer the second question first, the way I look at standard is I go on various sites such as like Channel Fireball, TCG Player, Star City, and then I go through there and I start reading articles and I look. I was like, okay, this is what's hot in standard. This is what's kind of sort of not hot in standard, and I should not be picking this up in standard. To answer your first question, there are a few cards that people probably should be picking up now before they almost like double in price in standard. One of them is Goldspan Dragon. Goldspan Dragon is currently about $25. Either way. People laughed at me when I said Goldspan Dragon is going to hit $35. That card is currently $25. With paper play, I think is going to hit $40 before the year is out.
Ooh, that's a spicy prediction, but like it's already crept up from 15 to 25 on the basis of basically no like in-person standard play. So yeah, I like that.
Another prediction is Valky. It is a very interesting card, seeing the fact you can cast it off a 7-mana spell and you can cast either or side. And when it hits the table, it just gives you a free emblem that allows you to basically play whatever you want. Another card I thought about was Vorinclex. And Vorinclex reminds me of a Doubling Season, except better because it's on a stick. The last cards I still recommend are Pathways. I don't think we've never seen those types of lands in standard before, and right now the supply is kind of high, and I think when paper comes back around, the supply will deplete a bit, and I think those lands will see above $5 eventually.
Do you like the full art version? Do you like full art foils, non-full art foils? Is there a particular version you prefer, or do you think that it's so open to personal taste that like it's probably a wash?
I like full art non-foil. I would not recommend full art foils or regular pack non-foil or regular pack foil. If you are going to simply buy the cards and or invest, I would recommend full art non-foil.
Yeah, that was my feeling too. I buy basically all of the alternate art, full art triomes that I can find, but I kind of get the feeling that by the time we might not get to play triomes too much in standard by the time everyone gets vaccinated. But the pathway lands, I think that's great advice, and that's from two different sets that kind of came out. You know, there was collector boosters. There's not a lot of play. You know, everyone's kind of at home with more money than usual. And, you know, we're seeing stuff get bought up to an insane degree, and then we're seeing really low prices on some of these pathway lands, but they've basically never been played in standard. So it'll be real interesting to see what standard mana bases are actually going to look like when people actually need cards. So, yeah,
Speaking of collector's boosters.
Yeah.
Speaking of collector's boosters, so from what I have noticed, especially with SCG and Channel Fireball, if you were right now to go on there and try to purchase either, let's say, for example, Goldspan Dragon Full Art or Valky Showcase, you can't. I firmly believe that those two, I firmly believe either most showcase cards are going to go up in price over time because there are very little collector's boxes left. So if you're looking to get extended art or showcase art, now will probably be a good time to start grabbing those.
I think they're the new foil, right? Like right now with collector boosters and the pringling, we're kind of seeing that the price of a foil and the price of a like regular art non-foil are just about the same, right? Especially on cards under
Correct.
like a couple of bucks. But the showcase cards, I kind of think we could see that as like, oh, it's going to be a 2 or 3x multiplier. So I think the price of the promo, like the alternate art stuff, you know, the like the different borders, the different art, you know, I think, what is that called? Showcase? That showcase stuff will probably diverge over time. So if like a non-foil, like just like the regular copy goes from 2 to 4, it's potential that like the showcase copy goes from 3 to 9 versus 3 to 5, you know? So I think we could see a divergence, and I like those long-term better than foils also.
I agree.
So would you target only playable cards, or do you think they're all pretty much?
I think eventually, in some way, shape, or form, especially with Kaldheim and the way Standard is forming, because we never know what could see play and what cannot see play. I would just grab maybe like, if you know the card's going to see play, like, hey, this card's an all-star, I'm going to go ahead and grab 4. Like, for example, I grabbed the Time Walk, Alundra Epiphany.
Yeah.
I eventually think that card is going to see like $10 to $12.
And the extended art looks
God.
really good, and it's almost the same price as the non-extended art. Like for a mythic, for one to be like $2 and one to be $3 just doesn't seem right to me.
Yeah.
I cut you off. What else were you gonna say?
The other thing I did pick up actually recently was the Blue God, the Alundra, the one that flips and turns into a raven. I picked that one up as well too. Except I picked it up in Japanese because I eventually think that's gonna see play.
Because you're the drip guy.
Yeah.
Do you like Cosima on Standard? Because we've been testing it in EDH and we're liking Cosima like better than Ristic Study, because everybody forgets about it and then you like just draw 5 cards off of it.
Cosima. Oh, that card's insane. But it has yet to find a home.
I think they were planning on it getting played alongside some of the landfall stuff in Standard.
Yep.
And I'm thinking that could still be a thing, because, you know, we'll be playing, hopefully we'll be playing Zendikar alongside Kaldheim in Standard, hopefully. You know, it could be a while before everybody gets vaccinated, but go ahead, DJ.
So what is your expected timeline for paper? Like, what is your expected timeline for paper events to resume, and what do you think the size of those events is? Just because, like, I'm somebody who works in like the organized play like ecosystem, I guess is the best way to put it. I'm one of the big vendors that like perks up at a Grand Prix, and like I was under the impression that we're not going to have any Grand Prix sized events until the end of 2021. So are you referring to more like local events, or?
I am referring to more to local events, but also at the slight hint that I think I'm hoping by the end of 2021, they will announce when they are starting Grand Prix again, and I think 2022 is when they officially launch them.
I think that's a reasonable timeline, yeah, because I mean, on a logistics level too, it takes like literal months to plan that stuff out and book. You have to like book convention halls like over a year in advance to some degree. So.
Yeah,
but I think we're about to see how much just FNM, absent like the larger event scene, is going to be a driver of prices. But I think there's so much pent up demand that like I think FNMs are going to go gangbusters.
Oh, FNMs are going to go hard.
Because there's been unfortunately there's been more F&M activity over the past year than we'd like to. So I like, just based on like how the country exists and the people in it, I am curious to see how many people actually stayed home from F&M and how like, yeah, like I hope it is a bigger wave of returning than I would like, or than I would expect, I think is the best way to put it. Like, because just based on the Facebook groups I'm in and based on the Twitter people I follow, there are a significant number of Magic players whose life has not been changed or whose decisions have not changed over the past year as much as I would have liked them to. So
imagine coughing on each other in a secret underground F&M Fight Club basement.
What's the first rule about F&M Fight Club?
Right? You don't come on a podcast and talk about it. Just get Arena. Come on now.
So I certainly hope that there is a large resurgence of F&M, because that would imply that a large number of Magic players actually did stay home, which would make me feel a little better about the world.
I'm sure that's the case. Like,
I'm really
I don't know of any. Go ahead, Jay.
I'm really hoping. You're fine. I'm really hoping that actually happens, and just like a large resurgence of players comes out of hiding for F&M. Because at one point I thought about staying home, like after paper resurgence for F&M, but I'm like, nah, maybe I may play a few here and there, but like I think the way Magic has gone for me lately, I may still actually just stay home a bit more and play stuff like Magic.
Yeah, the quality of EDH I've been able to play with webcam has gone up a ton. You know, like it's hard to justify going to the shop when like I can play with other content creators, but I realize that's not an option for everybody. But
right,
again, stuff like Spell Table's been really good for just getting high quality pods and, you know, just being able to play whenever you want, whether your LGS is closed or not.
Yes,
So
that's exactly how I felt about SCGs and Channel Fireball events.
Well, thanks for your time, Jay. Is there anything else you wanted to talk about before we call it an interview?
Not at the moment, no. Anything, if anyone has any questions, they can always find me at JWMTG on Twitter. You can DM me and I will gladly answer more questions, or you can just tweet me and I will answer them there too.
Very cool. Anything you wanted to pitch or talk about? Anything you wish people knew about what it's like to be JW?
I kind of was saving this one for somewhere else, but I'll give a slight peek. People always ask me about tournament life, like the wins and everything else, and they don't see the other side, the losing when you go like 0-4 in an event, or when you're not consistently qualifying. That is the other side of it. It's rough, but it makes it all the more worth it when you finally catch that one big break and you just went out.
Yeah, absolutely. I can see that. I saw enough of that other side of it that led me to be on the other side of the vendor booth, and that's why I do what I do today instead of playing Magic. But
yeah,
if you have, you need to have the determination for it, and I did not.
Yes.
Yeah, I found myself where I would hate losing more than, you know, I liked winning, and I didn't have the right attitude for it. I don't think long term, but I met a lot of cool people when I was grinding hard. It just, you know, I'm much happier making casual content now. Well, cool. Hey, thanks very much for your time, Jay. We're gonna put Jay's Twitter handle in the show notes, and you should definitely give him a follow on the Twitter. And
thank you guys for having me on.
Oh, it was our pleasure, and we'll return you to your regularly scheduled podcast activities.
And we want to thank Jay again for coming onto our podcast. We like having people on our podcast who provide good information. So get to Twitter, tweet good things, and we will find you. That sounds more aggressive than you think it is, but if you tweet good finance information, just pay attention, and you might see like a little red dot on your forehead in the reflection of your computer screen, and then you'll be like, Brainstorm Brewery has found, and then you'll open up Twitter, like your hand will be shaking a little bit, but it's fine. You'll open up Twitter, and then you'll just see a DM from us, and the DM will say go outside, and then you'll go outside, there'll be a note, and then the note will say turn around, take 4 steps that way, and then you'll find us. We'll find you. We'll find you. We'll have you on the podcast if you tweet good things. Don't worry.
There you go, everybody. Whenever you feel like you have a particularly deep insight, tag Brainstorm Brew on Twitter, which should pop up because you're already following it, of course. So let's move on. Now, we want to talk about our friends over at originalmagicart.store. OMA is the leading place across the entire internet for magic art, for magic prints, for playmats, for getting in on the new art from the most recent sets, and the playmats from the stuff that is just coming out. You can impress all your friends and have the first one, but the reality is all of us know somebody who loves magic art, whether that's us, whether that's our friends, whether that's our family, etc. And originalmagicart.store is where you can bring that art into your life, or your friends or family's life, in almost any way you want. They're always coming out with new offerings. And of course, you get to support the artists while you're doing it. So we want to always encourage everybody to go check out originalmagicart.store. You can use the code BREWCREW when you check out, and we would appreciate it, and they would appreciate it. And we know, especially in these times, the artists who are trying to make a living in that field certainly appreciate it as well.
Corbin, do you know what the card Chain of Plasma does?
Bounces things?
Close. It's lightning bolt, but
Chain
it's
of
chain of
vapor.
vapor. But like it's the lightning bolt version of Chain of Vapor.
One.
Okay.
Do you know who drew that card?
Not off the top of my head, I do not.
Well, neither did I until I looked it up like 2 seconds ago for this bit, but it's Gary Riddell.
Okay.
And if you're somebody who was like, how dare you not know who drew Chain of Vapor? I love that painting. Well, go buy it at originalmagicart.store. They have literally the original art for Chain of Plasma on that website for $6,000. If you're thinking that's a lot, it is. That's like your entire family's for stimulus check. You probably shouldn't use that on it. But
I think my daughter got
if
a
you're
stimulus
looking
check.
Listen, man, I don't know how the stimulus checks work. But if you're looking for a different piece that's not that, then you should probably just like message Josh at originalmagicart.store, because I hear he talks to artists. I hear he knows artists, and I hear he can get you the hookup on the painting that you are lusting after.
Pick of the week, pick of the week, pick of the week. Time for the pick of the week.
And with that, it is time, everybody, for pick of the week. I'll go first, and I'm going to strike a hopeful note here. The card Ox of Agonis from Theros Beyond Death is a mythic that is starting to see increased play in almost every format. I don't know what this card does in EDH, maybe nothing, but I know that this card is popping up in Standard. It's a historic card, it's a pioneer card, and with the shake-up to all the formats,
Reveler, right?
It's certainly another Bedlam Reveler, right? It's very powerful, and I think maybe goes in similar decks, or maybe different decks, but it fills the same type of role. You're right. So Ox of Agonis is really powerful, and at $5 as a mythic here, it's already climbed up from about 4 a month ago. So it's got a little bit of momentum. Theros Beyond Death is ages ago at this point. And it's not going to take much competitive play in the future for this card to go up. And it's not just Standard, obviously. It's got real potential and Pioneer and so on. So, yeah, I mean, look, this is one of those speculative, hopeful picks, right? That we live in a world where this card becomes relevant, because that would probably mean good things for the format and for organized play. So I'm going to pick Ox of Agonis this week and cross my fingers.
Boom.
All right. I have a pick that I thought was insane, but it might just be a very slow gainer. It might have finally fizzled out, and like the anime trope where the guy's got like 100 swords in his back and he finally goes down. Like this card has received a similar number of reprints. I'm talking about Austere Command.
Okay.
Austere Command had a history of getting reprinted and then going back up to its glory days of $10. It got hit with a back-to-back in Double Masters and then Commander Legends, so it got the whole like Rasengan Chidori on both sides kind of thing going on. And now it is on the ground, bleeding out at $1.50 roughly. You can get foils for like $3 or $4. I want to say I like this because I mean Austere Command has like never been $1.50 to $2 ever. You can buy a stack of them if you want, but it's one of those that might finally start to climb back up to 4 or 5, but it'll take a while if it does. But it's just one of those cards I wanted to highlight. Maybe you only need 1 or 2 for your next couple commander decks. Now is absolutely the time to buy if you just need 1 or 2.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite ways to do pick of the week.
Is Rasengan really something that does injure to the... I would say Rasengan is going to MTG stocks and looking at the price of a card. Whatever. We're nerds. Who cares? I'm going to make the kind of pick I never make and talk about an imprint card that, like, whose amount of play has not really been fully realized, but I don't think that you're ever going to be upset you bought these at $1 because you're like, I could have bought these at 40 cents, whatever. I like Cosima, God of the Voyage. I like all the weird printings on it. Cosima of God of the Voyage is eventually going to replace Rhystic Study in all of my landfall decks. Possibly all of my decks.
Wow.
You play this, they can't interact with it, you make a bunch of landfall triggers, then you draw 8 cards, and they're like, well, that sucks. Now I got a 10, 12 creature to deal with, and you drew 8 cards, and you're like, sorry, fair magic rules. Or you just hit them with the Omen Keel and take their lands, which is really funny. Either way you play Cosima, I think it probably won't be a bulk rare forever. And I also think like all the alternate art versions of this are basically the same price as the non. So just get the crazy like Nordic looking one probably for like $1. That's my pick. I never pick stuff like this because it's risky. Why speculate when you can just use EDH Rec? But you know what? I'm going to go out on a limb and talk about a card that I like that I think is underplayed and could get played more. But hey, sometimes that's Helmet Possession and I'm the only one who cares. So
well,
yeah, I mean, it's the fun part of the job. It's
here.
the thrill-seeking part of our job is just making the Assassin's Creed jump and just hoping it lands. And
you want a sexy spec? Here's your sexy spec.
I'll be honest, I think the main reason this card is so cheap is because people fall asleep reading halfway through it.
It's got a lot of words.
It's got so many words. This
and
is
then
a
you
bedtime
flip
story.
it over, and there's that many words on the back, and you're like, "What did I do?"
It's a book.
Yes.
It has pages, plural. There's 2 pages on this card. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
I think it's
Also,
cheap because...
I'm looking at the.
Good.
I'm looking at the Gatherer page for this card too, and it's just if you think the words on the card are novel, the rulings they put out with this thing will put everyone else to sleep. Like the police are going to come check on you because someone's going to have called in a wellness check. You're going to be so deep asleep after reading Cosima, and someone's going to pull up the Gatherer page, and everyone trying to help you is just going to pass out too. It's infinite words to play this card, but you're right. At the end of the day, it does do powerful stuff. All right, everybody, I think that wraps us up for the week. Thank you so much for listening. We hope you enjoyed the interview. If you want more content like that, let us know. We'd love to make it. So, everybody, thanks for listening to Brainstorm Brewery. See you next week.